today is a wonderfully gifted young man, Josh Heimbecker, who has one of the neatest opportunities I've known. I haven't known of another young person who's gotten to be on the Board of Regents of a great university system, Texas Tech system. How did that happen?
That's actually kind of an interesting story, Dr. Bonds. It's a little bit of an exhaustive process. I started at Angelo State and, just going through my academics, I decided to get involved in student government. And that's when I realized, that's when I kind of saw the influence of the board and what it was, the Board of Regents, because as a typical student, it's something that you don't really think about on a day-to-day basis. But as I progressed through student government, I started as a senator, and I was actually brought to a Board of Regents meeting as just kind of a guest of honor, and they just recognized me in the audience once. And then I saw some of the other SGA leaders of the different schools within the system giving reports. Every SGA president gives a report at every meeting because the board is very concerned with the student opinion, because ultimately,
Yes.
at the end of the day, that's what's most important is, the life and the role of the student. And so as I started thinking about this, I always saw that, there was always one student on that board. And the first time I went to one of the meetings, it was actually a med school student through the Texas Tech Health Science Center in Lubbock. And I was like, she looks a lot younger than the rest of the Regents. And turns out, she was I think she was a second-year student at that time. And, it kind of registered, and I was like, well, that's really neat that they value the student opinion enough to place someone there. And then I started looking into it a little bit more and realized that there was actually a process and that it was a governor-appointed position, and that you could actually apply through it and for it and be elected. Most cases, it starts on the school level. They try to keep a pretty good rotation through the schools within the university system.
Is it a one-year appointment?
It is a one-year appointment.
Wow.
So every year, there's kind of this inside joke on the Board of Regents that by the time you step down, you finally realize what you're supposed to be doing.
I would think that is absolutely true and not a joke.
Yeah, I kind of laughed at first, and now as I'm, in May, I step down. I believe May 31st is my last day, and I do feel comfortable right now with my position. I feel like I actually know what I'm doing and I have the direction. It takes a little time to get used to it and figure out all the ropes, but...
Do you think most of the university systems in Texas have a student, or is Texas Tech unique?
I believe all public university systems have a student regent. I believe that was passed in a legislative type act, so there is one student representative on each public Board of Regents for each university system.
Well, I have not attended any other Board of Regents besides Texas Tech's, and because they have had some meetings here in town, and I'm so interested in ASU and the Texas Tech system, I have attended several of those meetings, and I'm incredibly impressed with how well this Board of Regents is run, and you nailed it a few minutes ago when you said they are deeply interested in the student input and the student ideas.
Absolutely.
I don't know when I was in college as an undergrad student that I had a clue what the Board of Regents did and how critical them getting good information. And so would you tell me what are some of the lasting impacts being a part of this group for almost a year now have made on you?
Oh, goodness. I mean, the entire experience has been almost surreal. What I'm exposed to, the range of things that the Regents are involved with, because everything regarding university, from physical plant to particle physics to grants to hiring to granting of tenure to investment to, enriching the student life, academic life, every part of it. It's just been incredibly eye-opening to see the the workings and what actually goes into the interplay of a university system, because there's no one. Every role is so valued and so important, and you get to really kind of see the whole span of it. It's kind of a top-down view, and as a student, you're so used to being on the very other end of it. So it's been very unique just to see, how everything comes together and what all it takes to have a successful university system. And it really is incredible. All the interchange from, staff and faculty, the students, and it's been truly an eye-opening experience.
Well, I can't imagine how on earth the Board of Regents, being from different cities, vastly different backgrounds, which makes it very rich with expertise, but they're juggling the needs of different universities in different cities. The only thing I have to compare it to is the fact that we have a lot of different schools under our school board, but at least we're all in the same city.
Right.
So I think the challenges of a Board of Regents is I can't wrap my mind around it. What, if you, in your mind's eye, could think of what one part of this, all the decisions they have to consider, you named most of them, facilities, personnel, extracurricular activities, level of academics, all those things you articulated, what would they spend the most time on?
Oh my goodness. Some things are more tedious in nature. Whenever you start looking at, say, an investment portfolio,
Okay.
that might be something that takes a lot of time, but the Texas Tech Board of Regents is very much concerned with the affordable cost of attending their university system and a priceless education, which is kind of almost counterintuitive sounding together, but I would say they spend the most time ensuring they have the most enriching environment for their students at the most affordable cost that they can. And those kind of two factors simultaneously they probably take the most effort and require the most time for all members of the board and the university system in general.
Do you think, I'm guessing here, so set me straight, do you think that they, of course, they have a huge input on who the presidents are of their how many universities are in the Texas Tech system?
Right now we have Angelo State, Texas Tech, Health Science Center Lubbock, and then most recently we have the Paul L. Foster, the Texas Tech Health Science Center El Paso. And there we are currently in the process of selecting a president for that Health Science Center.
And if you have a great president at each university, I would assume you trust them to run the details, like fixing water pipes.
Sure.
I'm just using that as an example. So is it fair to say that the regents then focus on the big global pieces, or do they get sometimes bogged down with the small things of running a university?
Sure. We definitely focus more on the global issues. The university system as a whole, kind of trying to be a proponent for the university system. However, things do come up on, the individual campus level, and those require, if something needs a little extra attention, the regents, they have very busy schedules, but they're always willing to sacrifice a little time. And there is a lot of interplay between the regional presidents, if you would, the campus presidents, and the Board of Regents, because there is a tremendous amount of trust, and they work very well together. Because your president, say Dr. May here at Angelo State, is probably be a little bit more in tune with some of the issues of his campus and his university than maybe a regent would, who spends the majority of his time in Houston. But they also have this working relationship between the two of them that if anything was to come up, it's a team effort. And that's what I've really come to respect about the Texas Tech Board of Regents, is that they all work incredibly well together, and there's nothing too small that to lose the attention of a regent, and they do their very best to make the university system strong.
The meetings I have attended, the Board of Regents have gotten along well. It isn't that they rubber stamp. It's like my school board. My board gets along very well, but they also are checks and balances.
Sure.
And I was impressed with how they would light up with pride when at the meeting at Angelo State, students would be showcased like I do at our board meetings, because that is, at the end of the day, as you said, what we're here for is to have the best opportunity educational for students. What has been the biggest surprise for you about being a part of this group?
There's been many things that have kind of not really caught me off guard, but I was so focused in my studies and in the sciences. I was biology, and I did lots of coursework in chemistry, and I had experiments running, and I loved that aspect of academics, and I made sure to take a couple extra courses to balance everything. A literature course here. I actually minored in Spanish, but coming into the regent's role, whenever I was actually, I don't even know, it's almost shallow to say this, but it really was a revelation, was looking at the budget for the university system. These are numbers that I'd only seen counting atoms and molecules, and to see that, associated with the cost of this university system and what it takes, how important the monetary aspect of education is, that was really kind of a shock to me.
And I think that that's true with even a school district. It takes people, a Board of Regents and a school board, to make the very best use of every dollar, even though there are hundreds of millions of dollars they're
Sure.
dealing with, and not be wasteful. Money is too tight across the board. You also have probably realized how big an impact our legislators have on the public university system, as well as my public K through 12 system, pre-K through 12 system. There's some years right before you got on that were so lean.
Sure.
It was, I used the descriptor, it got below the quick. It hurts when a fingernail gets below the quick, and
Yes, ma'am.
we had to, through stress and tension, decide what is important, what are the most important aspects of our schools that we don't want to be hurt, and what can we pull back. What are the discussions at the Board of Regents level about making sure the funds are strategically spent and not wasted?
Oh, I think that actually ties directly in with the diversity of the board itself. There are 9 regents, 10 including myself, all who are experts in their own fields. So you have people from banking, healthcare, oil and gas, real estate. I mean, there's all these different aspects of it where these people can take their combined knowledge and really see how to utilize things to the best degree. They're very wise stewards of their money, and they realize that, exactly how far the dollar goes. And they also realize that the more efficient they are as a system, the cheaper it is for the students, the more inexpensive it is for the students. And that is an ultimate goal for them. So I've seen, we have some of the greatest financial officers that I've ever met. And I at this point, I have met several, and especially with some of the connections we have with the legislators and kind of, realizing, how precious, every state dollar is. the board does a terrific job of keeping costs as low as they can and running a very efficient, system.
Well, Texas Tech system, as you mentioned, has research as a part of its tenet. And I know that politics right now in Texas can impact how much research is expensive because it's often you don't see an immediate, like when a ball team goes in to play a ball game, there's a winner and a loser. Research takes time and it's expensive, and researchers in our nation want to go to a research institution where they can teach some and research some.
Sure.
And research isn't necessarily quickly bringing in dollars like having students in seats. How do you think in the future, I'm going to ask you to sort of predict here, how can our regents of our major great universities in this state balance having professors teaching students that bring in money and being at the forefront of research? How do we balance that?
That is a terrific question. I think that there's a lot of debate about that as well. In general, Texas Tech has a very strong desire for research, and we have a lot of very cutting edge, unique opportunities. But the return on investment is challenging a lot of times, especially with certain fields. A lot of the research conducted today is going to have a tremendous impact 10 years from now. But
it's expensive.
Absolutely. It's so expensive, and there's a lot of costs associated with that. But it's kind of a balance. Texas Tech prides itself on having their professors teaching their students. There is we have a very good ratio of these researchers who are clinicians, research. They might be spending their morning at the lab bench, but that afternoon they're going to be lecturing some of their students. That investment from the researchers is very keen because it's those students who are going to receive an invaluable education, and that's where your incomes can be generated for the state of Texas. If you have the greatest research team at a university, whenever you think about the 33,000, the 35,000, 40,000 students that might go through that system in 4 years, that's where you really see the numbers come in. But at the same time, Texas Tech has a great department of research and commercialization. There's a vice chancellor, Jody Arrington, who has a very keen insight. Wind energy is a big proponent in the Texas Tech system right now. And if you step out in West Texas at any given day, you could probably...
There is wind.
That's one thing we have plenty of. And the closer you get to Lubbock, the windier it gets. So I think there's a lot of unique opportunities. And from system to system, it's going to take realizing your strong points in research, combining them, it's more of a marriage of that with the academics, because make what you have strong in both regards. Make it strong in the classroom and make it strong in commercial research. And that's when you're going to find a lot of success.
I agree with you totally. I was waiting to see if you and I were going to agree about that. It's a balance.
Absolutely.
It can't be either or. Yeah, good for you. You did your early years of public school at Crockett
Yes,
Elementary, and still a great elementary that we've done a lot of renovation and closed in those hallways.
I've seen that.
And I'm so grateful that we were able to do that at several of our schools. And then now at ASU, you have finished your business. What was your major?
My undergraduate work was biology.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm going into the business aspect.
Okay. So that is an interesting combination there. Do you know when you finish your master's, which you're at the front end?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what you plan to do with that biology business?
Well, I grew up, my father was a physician. If you would have asked me from probably 4th grade till my sophomore year of college, I was going to be a medical doctor. That's still something I consider, but I do realize that especially now and in the coming years, there's going to be a great merger of business and science, technology, commercialization, and that's something that I've just really enjoyed. Spending a little time, as I mentioned, with the Office of Research and Commercialization at Texas Tech, that's, it's a direct pairing of you have research and you have the business aspect of it, and I think they complement each other really well. And for me, part of the reason I'm doing this business is I don't think you can go wrong with a little additional business sense.
In any field.
Absolutely.
That is a great, personally and professionally, that's nice. What do you do in your spare time? I heard music is something you enjoy.
That is definitely, I've been playing guitar for probably about 10 years now, and I've been playing around town, around Texas. I've traveled, from, I went all the way up to Canada playing guitar one time. I was hired for a musical as an accompanist, and we drove from San Angelo, Texas, all the way to Toronto, and I just absolutely love music. If I have pastime, I'm either exercising, playing a little bit of music, spending some time with the family.
Well, do you envision that being your therapy and what energizes you later as you go into further adulthood?
Sure, absolutely. Music is definitely, I wouldn't call it an escape, because I'm really not running from anything, but it's a nice place for, if you need a little solitude every now and then, I can entertain myself pretty easily.
And you said that you like blues.
Absolutely.
What drew you to that?
It's funny. I remember going downstairs in the basement of our house over on Douglas whenever I was at Crockett, and I would listen to my parents' old albums, and there was a lot of really good music I was exposed to whenever I figured out how to work that record player, which just blew my mind at the time. I mean, it's like a giant CD, and now they're actually vinyl is actually, I think it holds like 10% of the market right now on recordings. It's making a huge comeback.
I did not know that.
Oh, sure. If you talk to some of your friends in some of the bigger cities, the hip crowd's all about vinyl right now.
Why?
I don't know about maybe I hear stuff about recording quality, music quality. I think it's kind of like the comeback of the Fedora. It just happened. And
Okay. Well, I'm pleased to know that, because I have a lot of records, my husband and I do, that are very important to us from earlier years. Wow. So were you brainwashed by the blues from your parents' collection?
Well, I was just really drawn to it. I really enjoyed it. I remember I had a whole array of music I listened to. I think I still have, my dad's Let It Be album from the Beatles and from Peter Frampton, and then...
So you enjoy a lot of different kinds?
Sure.
Nice. That's very nice. And we know that how important, I wish our audience I hope that they will understand how much research there is about brain development for young people with music, even if those of us who don't go into it as a profession, but we know it helps our brain development. So many of my former students, especially who've gone into science fields, have had a strong background in some form of music. So I have to put that plug in.
Sure, absolutely.
You think you may stay West Texas for a while, at least till you have your next degree. And then do you think you might stay around in West Texas?
West Texas is always going to be home. I could see myself spending a little time elsewhere temporarily, but I would like to return to this area. I mean, I've loved San Angelo. It's been a great place for me. I loved, my experience in education here and working here. I actually was talking to a couple people up on Capitol Hill about a couple internships that might happen.
Nice.
But other than that, or maybe a little time in our state capital. But ultimately, I would like to return to this part of the world and be a part of the community that I grew up in.
Give back.
And give back, absolutely.
And who knows, you may be appointed on a board of regents, but regardless, we are so proud of you. And from the first time I met you, I thought, wow, this young man is going to make our world better than he found it. Thank you so much. You are breaking what many people think the mold is of young people your age, that all they're doing is thinking about themselves. And I want to thank you for giving back already at your young age. Way to go.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Thank you.